In today's video is one that many of you have pestered me for. I review Rainbow Plant Life's What I Eat in a Day. Roll the titles.
For the record, I'm done trying to make y'all comfortable. For the record, you ain't trying to grow, then it's done for you.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. As always, just a quick reminder that I'm now offering the SIBO, organic acids, stool tests and consult via my website. So if you have any health or digestive problems, then consider taking these tests as they will provide a lot of very detailed information upon which you can start making informed decisions and then start getting your health back on track. And on that bombshell, to the video.
Look at this. This is a peach Danish. How cool is it that I can get a vegan peach Danish? So cool.
It does look pretty good.
So I haven't eaten anything all morning. I've been fasting. Most days I do intermittent fasting, which is also known as time-restricted feeding. This is the first bite of the day. It's a great first bite of the day.
So there are many different types of intermittent fasting. There is the 16-8 method, the 5-2 diet, the eat, stop, eat method, the alternative day fasting, the warrior diet, spontaneous meal skipping, and so on. Now, each type of intermittent fasting eating pattern typically includes fasting periods that are longer than a normal overnight fast of 8 to 12 hours. Time-restricted eating or time-restricted feeding that Rainbow Plant Life is referring to just simply means that the people who follow this eating pattern will typically eat during an 8 to 12 hour daytime window and fast during the remaining 12 to 16 hours. Sachin Panda and his team at the Salk Institute for Biological Studies have heavily studied time-restricted feeding and the circadian rhythm and have repeatedly elicited beneficial health effects, including weight loss, reduced fat mass, improved heart function and enhanced aerobic capacity without altering diet quality or quantity.
Alright, so intermittent fasting, please don't take this as advice for yourself. This is just my personal experience.
Love the fact that she has caveated this and said this is her experience, and it doesn't mean that you should take this advice or that you should do it.
Since I've been doing it regularly, I've noticed that it has retrained my brain to recognize when I'm truly hungry versus like when I'm bored or when I'm stressed or when I just like am feeling very snacky. Because before I break my fast, I am truly hungry. Like, I feel the hunger pain.
This is why time-restricted feeding and intermittent fasting is such a useful strategy for many, because it helps them better regulate appetite. So many people eat because they are bored, they use it as a comfort thing, or because the environment around them is constantly telling them to eat. Time-restricted feeding can help you control this whole eating environment, and if you can actually stick to it, then it can offer many health benefits that we have already discussed. So if you are struggling with weight, appetite, or other metabolic health problems, then I would certainly consider looking at time-restricted feeding. But remember to do this under the supervision of a trained healthcare professional. If you are struggling with weight, energy, or appetite issues, then there could be underlying health issues at play, such as thyroid problems, so don't just jump into intermittent fasting unless you have been checked out.
It's not that I don't ever eat when I'm stressed or bored, I certainly do, but I feel like my body now understands it a little bit better.
This is so true for many. Intermittent fasting can help you better identify true hunger signals and not just something like boredom signals.
That is why I'm doing this video, because I want to show you that my diet is a mix. It is a mix of, yes, wholesome plant-based food that I cook at home that is really good for you, but it's also a mix of delicious flaky pastries made with flour and real sugar that maybe aren't that nutrient dense, but do make my heart and soul happy. And I think that's a big part of being healthy, is being happy.
I would agree with that to an extent, and there is certainly no problem with having treat foods now and again, but it's all about context. The predominance of your diet should be based on whole foods. Pastries, etc. should be eaten on special occasions or for weekend treats. They shouldn't ever become a daily occurrence. Without sounding like a broken record, eat whole foods 80% of the time, and then at the weekend allow yourself a pizza or burger.
I cooked some lentils in my Instant Pot this morning before we left for the farmer's market. So these are black beluga lentils. I'm not sure what this looks like. It probably just looks like pebbles.
I love beluga lentils, and generally speaking, they are the most nutritious of all lentils. 1 cup of uncooked lentils provides around 26 grams of protein, 18 grams of fiber, 100 milligrams of calcium, 8 milligram of iron, and 960 milligram of potassium. So if you haven't tried them before, then give them a whirl.
I'm gonna mix the lentils with some herbs and balsamic vinegar and salt, and then we're gonna have it with some hummus and fresh baguette. Cilantro, parsley. I'm gonna add a little bit of both to this. Got some fresh herbs now, and this is just gonna make this a lot more flavorful. And then I'm gonna add some balsamic vinegar. This, I think, is one of the best balsamic vinegars. It is really thick and syrupy, and it's been aged for, I don't know, many years. I don't know how many years, but...
So think of aged balsamic vinegar like aged wine. You can absolutely get good non-aged wine, but it often tastes so much better the older it is. The problem with this though is cost. I would love to have 12-year aged balsamic vinegar, but the cost can range from £10 to £50 upwards per bottle, of which my bank balance says hell no to.
Oh, hell no!
But I would highly recommend trying aged balsamic vinegar if you are ever out at a restaurant for a special meal, etc.
So good, you really just need a little bit. Some sea salt. I wasn't planning to add any olive oil. I thought the balsamic vinegar might be enough, but it needs just a tiny drizzle.
I can hear Dr. Esselstein now.
No oil. No oil!
As I have said repeatedly, with all the things that humans need to currently worry about with their health, having a bit of olive oil or a pinch of salt shouldn't be up there with your health concerns. If you want to remove oils from your diet, then great, but you don't need to fear it in small amounts.
To help it all come together. We have a baguette to eat. It's a buckwheat baguette. Oh, Max, did you eat some of this baguette already?
Look at that bread. And for people like me who really struggle with gluten, buckwheat is actually gluten-free despite having wheat in its name. That bread looks absolutely epic.
For snacking.
Always got to snack on bread like that when cutting it up. Them be the rules.
I'm just gonna make us little sandwiches like this. First, we're gonna use some hummus. This is just store-bought hummus. Sometimes I make my own hummus, but sometimes I don't have time.
Yes, I think a lot of people can relate to that. If you can make your own, then great, but if you can't, you should certainly not feel guilty about it.
And I use store-bought hummus, and it's fine. It's delicious. Then I'm gonna take some salad greens. These are salad greens we have from last week's farmer's market that we haven't gotten through yet. These ones with the larger leaves are sunflower shoots, like sunflower seed. These skinnier ones, pea shoots. Very cute, very cute.
Anyone else getting hungry watching this? As a lunchtime snack, I say great, but I would certainly need more in terms of calories and nutrition, etc. But we will get to this in a second.
Bon appetit. It's me talking to Max, who doesn't want to be on camera. Well, it's a little too messy to eat on camera. What do you think?
It's very good.
Eating on camera versus eating off camera. So in terms of a quick nutritional breakdown of that meal, the calories came in at around 700 and probably around 17 to 20 grams of fibre. No real amounts of omega-3s or 6s, but this is obviously the first meal of the day. In terms of proteins, they are starting to stack up, and in terms of vitamins and minerals, there is still a little bit of work to do across the remaining meals. So let's see where she goes from here.
It's time to make dinner, but first things first, we gotta put the apron on. I am very clumsy, and I will most certainly spill something at some point. I'm gonna make kind of a sheet pan dinner, so I'm gonna clean and toss the mushrooms with some seasonings. I'm gonna do the same thing with the tofu. First, I'll press it, put it all together in a sheet pan. It goes in the oven, cooks at the same time. It's very convenient. I love sheet pan dinners for that reason. I've never made this particular recipe before, but I've made similar things like it, so I think it should work.
Sounds interesting.
If it doesn't work, I'm probably still gonna eat it. Before I start cooking the mushrooms, I'm going to press the tofu.
I know tofu should be pressed like this, but never does in my house.
For the oyster mushrooms, really all you need to do is remove the individual mushrooms. Oyster mushrooms aren't that dirty, so I'm not gonna thoroughly wash them, but I am gonna just kind of clean them off with a damp paper towel. And if they're really big like this, I'm gonna cut them in half.
Oyster mushrooms are one of my favourites. Now there isn't massive amounts of nutrients in oyster mushrooms, but they've got fairly decent amounts of niacin and pantothenic acid, which is vitamin B5. Niacin helps to keep your nervous system, digestive system and skin healthy. It also helps the body convert carbohydrates into fuel in the body, as does the vitamin B5.
Max, do you wanna say hi to the camera? No, he doesn't. He doesn't want to say hi. Max, do you like mushrooms?
No, they're disgusting.
I don't think they could hear you.
They're disgusting.
But do you like oyster mushrooms?
Yeah, those are pretty good.
A bit like me that, I love apples but can't stand them in apple pies. Tell me, where is the logic in that, hey?
So when you said you don't like mushrooms, that's not entirely true.
It's not entirely false either.
This is what I deal with on a regular basis.
I feel Max is being trolled here.
Because oyster mushrooms are so flavorful, I'm gonna treat them very simply, just oil, salt, and pepper in the oven.
So I love the simplicity of the recipes, but I'm starting to get a little bit concerned by the lack of calories and nutrients. So let's see what else goes into that recipe.
I'm lining a rimmed baking sheet with parchment paper, and I'll just add the mushrooms directly to the pan. So technically this is gonna be a 2-sheet pan dinner because I will need a separate sheet pan for the tofu. But if you're just making this for like 1 portion or even 2 portions, you could do everything on 1 pan.
Absolutely love a 1 pan or 1 tray meal. Look, that would be too much oil for my taste, but it's certainly not what I would call excessive. And for me, that tamari on its own would be absolutely fine.
I have a few other ingredients to add. This is what's gonna give the tofu a little bit of a crispy, crunchy exterior. I've got arrowroot powder, and that's gonna coat each piece of tofu to give that, I wouldn't say it's like crunchy, but it's a little bit crispy. And then again, use your hands and be gentle to make sure all the white powder is dissolved. If there's any white powder left, just go ahead and snort it up. Just kidding, don't do that.
Whatever floats your boat, I suppose.
And then I'm gonna use some panko, which are these Japanese style flaky breadcrumbs. If you're gluten-free, they do sell gluten-free breadcrumbs and gluten-free panko, so you could do that. And finally, some sesame seeds. These are black sesame seeds, but white sesame seeds also work.
Yes, I would imagine that would all give the tofu a really nice texture.
And now I'm just gonna add the tofu to another lined sheet pan. And make sure each of the tofu cubes is standing 6 feet apart from one another. That is the safest way to cook tofu. And if you can, make a little mask out of some panko breadcrumbs and sesame seeds. The tofu really likes to have a mask on.
Got to love a bit of dry humour.
Tofu and mushrooms in the oven, so I'm gonna make the sauce. I'm starting by grating some fresh ginger. I like to use a microplane to grate it. I think that's the easiest way. It's very hot in here, so if you see me sweating, it's because the oven's on and it's hot. Really go for like a cool, crisp glass of wine right now.
You want some wine?
Yes?
That's the most excited that she's been in the whole video.
This is the elusive Max, also cameraman, also occasional dishwasher, and wine retriever. He is a man of many talents. Some might say he's a Renaissance man.
Love the relationship trolling.
For the sauce, I'm also gonna use some fresh garlic, and I'm going to use a garlic press to make sure that it's finely crushed. So for the rest of the sauce, the base is almond butter. I'm just gonna put 4 tablespoons in a bowl and microwave it. That's another beep. Why are all these things beeping? And then that will make it a little bit smoother and easier to work with.
We'll definitely have to remember that one.
I'm gonna add a little bit of soy sauce or tamari. That will be the saltiness in the sauce. Add some sriracha, so it's gonna be spicy. We like it very spicy here. I'm using 1.5 tablespoons, which is a lot. If you're making this and you're sensitive to spicy food, just use a little bit.
That looks belting.
I'm gonna add a little bit of sweetness to balance the spiciness and the acidity, and then a little bit of sesame oil. Again, the toasted sesame oil is super flavorful and concentrated.
For my taste, a little bit overkill, but it would certainly taste nice.
And then normally I would use rice vinegar or lime juice for this, but Max brought home some Chinese black vinegar, is that right? And he really, really wants to use it. He's very excited about using it. I assume that it's more potent than regular rice vinegar. Whoa, it is, for sure. So I'm just gonna start with 1/2 tablespoon.
Not tried that, but absolutely love vinegars, so I'm sure that would add a nice little kick to the dish.
See how that goes. And now it's time to add the garlic and ginger. This is what I call multitasking.
She clearly loves multitasking.
It's quite thick, so I'm gonna add some water to thin it out. It's time to give it a taste. I have no idea what it's gonna taste like. That black vinegar is like a wild card. It's very good. It's quite spicy.
Right up my street, that.
All right, noodle time. This is some rice noodles. Pour this on top for about 10 minutes. Now let me show you the tofu. The mushrooms need probably 5 or 10 minutes longer, but the tofu is looking very perfect. All right, I think the mushrooms are done. They look pretty golden, dark brown to me. They're glistening.
The way all of that is shrunk down, it looks more like a starter.
Noodles just need a few more minutes, so in the meantime, I'm gonna chop up some chives as our garnish. Now add the tofu. Chewy, crispy, so much umami. It's very good. Now let us make some lettuce cups. You're welcome. I'm here all night. Here we go. That's good. It's messy, for sure. Overall, great success on this dinner that we are going to eat after I eat that first one. We will probably finish this delicious sparkling red wine, and that's about it.
Looks super tasty, but for me though, I would need something more substantial. But let's see how that day stacked up nutritionally. So including the glass of wine, the calories came in at around 2,189, which is fine for somebody of Rainbow Plant Life's metabolic profile, as I'm sure she is fairly active. In terms of fibre, it was okay at around 35 grams. For her lipids, she didn't quite hit her omega-3 recommendations, but this is obviously an isolated day of eating, and I have no way of knowing if she was supplementing. This day of eating could have therefore been heavily skewed in omega-6s. For her protein intake, she was probably a little bit low on lysine and cysteine, but again, this is an isolated day of eating, and I don't know if she is using anything like protein powders. For her vitamin and mineral intakes, she was probably low on B5, B6, folate, vitamin C, and also vitamin E. In terms of vitamin D, I would assume she is supplementing or going outside, although I would imagine it's fairly difficult to sunbathe in New York. For her mineral intakes, her calcium, iron and potassium were a little bit low, but everything else appeared to be okay. So as an isolated day of eating, it was generally okay across the board. A little bit too much in the way of oils for my taste, but as I said earlier, it certainly wasn't excessive. There were, however, some nutrients of concern throughout the day, namely cysteine, B6, vitamin C, vitamin E and iron were below a level that I would personally feel comfortable with. Now again, she may have smashed these the day before and the day after, so it is difficult to draw any significant conclusions from this. Anyhow, if you enjoyed this video, then be sure to check out this one up here because I'm sure you'll find it equally interesting. And the only other thing that's left for me to say is to remember to look after your body because it's the only place you have to live. And I'll see you next time.